Coming up on today's Next Fan Up podcast.
I like this idea for a couple of reasons. One, between the tropical squalls and the rolling decks and Somali pirates, this field is probably still safer than MetLife.
Thanks, Justin. I feel much better already. I really appreciate that.
We've seen that way too many times. And I have a lot of mean things to say about the 49ers, so I don't want to spend all this time talking about Tua.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, but...
It's week 5 in the NFL, and most of the games should be played. I think. Probably. This podcast is going to be played. Here we go.
That's how we start. Yeah, baby.
32 super fans.
Where do the reports come from? Did you get an initial?
One pod Vader.
That's football.
Every angle of the NFL covered.
All that kind of stuff, I get it.
This,
no question about it,
is Next Fan Up.
We're going to unleash hell here in December.
Hello and welcome to Dad Joke Thursday on the Next Fan Up podcast. Hey everybody, Pod Vader here. I'm beyond excited for Dad Joke Thursday. I've been looking forward to this since Tuesday, James.
We said we weren't going to do this. I literally remember.
No. You said it was going to happen.
We
I said it
that
was happening.
No. We agreed off air this was not happening.
Oh, no. That conversation certainly did not happen. That is Eagles James, who's with us. We have a little tighter crew today, as it's just James. No, it's not just James and I. We have one more super fan hailing from the West Coast, or at least representing the team from the West Coast. It is Seattle Seahawks superfan Justin. Hello, Justin.
James J., it has been too long. I am so glad to be back on the podcast. It is the Pacific Northwest. Yes, I'm still located here, although I did move to Portland from Seattle. Don't ask why. It's a whole thing. Forget about it. I'm here.
By the way, today's show is Dynamite. It's the JJJ show. Come on now.
No.
Joke number 1 in the books. God.
The whole show's going to be like this.
It's happening. It's happening. Detroit and Green Bay are listening to In Sync as they're on their bye week.
Oh.
Pigskin Pick Em, I went 9 straight up, 7 versus the spread. The power rankings had 11 straight up, but Barnold remains in first place in our Pigskin Pick Em group there. You can email us, nextfanup@gmail.com, just like Josh did. Josh, which one would you like, email number 1 or email number 2 from Josh, James?
Let's go email number 1. Pretty sure it's directed at me.
It was a good choice because you would not have liked email number 2 from Josh.
Yeah. Read them both. We got time.
We're definitely going to read them both. But here we go. This is related to COVID. And we're going to talk a lot about COVID because there are at least 2 games that are in jeopardy this week due to COVID. And we'll get to some ideas here. But Josh has this innovation for the NFL and how to sort of further the season. Why not retrofit a bunch of unused cruise ships with AstroTurf fields on the top deck and play games on those? It's a floating hotel with a helicopter pad that would be much easier to isolate than land-based fields. The home team could be in cahoots with the ship captain to create some home field advantages. Think rocking the boat, pass rushing and or blocking, turning it into the wind and gunning it, dropping anchor in hurricanes or nor'easter or tropical doldrums or the Arctic, or up the river themes or the Suez Canal, footballs being punted into the ocean, helicopter views of the game, fishing contests, seasickness, Belichick forcing players who make errors to walk the plank, scurvy. Seriously, some of these teams are already some versions of Pirates, the Buccaneers. Oh my God, Gronk and Beckham on the boat, Raiders, Vikings. Get the cruise ships to compete for pricing with free advertising. We aren't doing anything with those boats anyways. The coastal teams could just anchor in the harbor. Maybe some of the NFL owners already own cruise ships. At least I bet they're friends with people who do. Gambling might be legal in international waters. Jerry Jones could chill on his yacht next to the Cowboys cruise ship. All those pirate teams should have to play in the Straits of Malacca, where real pirates could board at any time. What do you think of this idea, guys?
Oh my gosh, wildly entertaining. Sounds like Madden 2022.
I like this idea for a couple of reasons. One, between the tropical squalls and the rolling decks and Somali pirates, this field is probably still safer than MetLife.
Wow.
Honestly, the LA Chargers are basically all on peg legs anyway, since half the team's lost an ACL. I think this is a win-win.
I mean, besides the fact that you clearly cannot play a game of football on a boat that is rollicking in the waves of the ocean.
I mean, didn't like Army, Navy, or Navy versus some other military academy play a game on a battle cruiser some years ago?
Like an aircraft carrier. You know what?
Yeah.
There is one reason why I think we shouldn't do this, though. And I would not want to be the team that has to play a Bill Belichick coach team when he has the advantage of no legal liabilities in international waters.
Oh boy. Yeah. It's I mean, it's certainly an interesting decision. I still don't understand why the NFL didn't bubble up. Because it does seem like it's something that's extremely easy to do. I don't understand why the NFL is sort of gung-ho and sort of forcing everybody to play their games now, and not building in bye weeks into the schedule, putting a pause on the games so that they can get all the games in. Like there's talk that the Bills Titans might actually end up in a forfeit, which I think is ridiculous. It's the most ridiculous thing that I've ever heard. And we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to that particular game during the Pigskin Pick Em. But to me, it seems pretty obvious that the NFL needs a better plan than we're just going to do it and be it as it may.
Yeah, Pod, you bring up some interesting points here, and I'm going to pick two. The bye week situation with the schedule is it's in shambles right now. I mean, officially this is the start of the bye weeks in week 5 going forward for the next 10 weeks or so. And the season probably should have been mapped out to be 18 to 19 weeks long, with teams having, like you said, multiple bye weeks for stuff like this. It'd be easier to move games around, especially with what's happening with the Titans right now, because they're the most severely stricken team of this pandemic, with all their testing. I think as we're recording, maybe another positive test will pop up, knock on wood. Hopefully it doesn't. The other thing is that I feel like the NFL looked at Major League Baseball kind of the way that arrogant kid in the first day of high school or college looks around when the administrator says, look to your left, look to your right. One of you won't be here in 4 years. And the NFL was like, that's not us. And now it's them, because they're going through exactly what Major League Baseball went through.
To me, as you mentioned, Detroit and Green Bay are on bye. If either of those teams have an outbreak like the Titans, they can't reschedule their games. There isn't a bye week for them to reschedule to. So the only way that they will be able to reschedule their potential missed matchup would be at the end of the season, or they're going to have to forfeit. And to me, this seems pretty reasonable. It doesn't seem, the only reason why, previous to this, they can't just move games around willy-nilly is because you're moving around 80,000 fans who have bought tickets to the game. Well, fans aren't allowed at the games. So
right.
It should be pretty easy to move the schedule around however you want.
It should be. But say they cancel, the unthinkable happens, they cancel a game. Now you got two teams who've only played 15 games this season while everyone else has played 16. And if either of those two teams is in some type of playoff contention, everybody else who's in the race or who missed out because of some, one game percentage differential is going to cry foul.
And the Bills and the Titans are both playoff contenders for certain. And maybe even the Patriots, and the Patriots are a team that's in danger of perhaps missing a game this week. So we'll get into all of that when we get to the Pigskin Pick 'em. But Josh's second email, by the way, is, in this summer of COVID, my 10-year-old was able to go to one sleepover. I was okay with it because it was intense. Just let that sit there. Time for Pod Vader's useless stats.
Thursday night's game is.
Oh no, we have useless stats first. You know how this works. We did touch on this last week, but the trends are continuing. Through week 4, league-wide scoring continues to trend at a historic rate, as the totals for touchdowns, 371, and points scored, 3,233, are both the most in NFL history through the first 4 weeks of a season. 8 teams are averaging at least 30 points per game, the most ever in a single season through week 4, and the 51.3 total points per game scored, both teams combined, is the highest total through the first 4 weeks of a season since 1970. This is the first season in which at least one team has overcome a deficit of 16 or more points and won in each of the first 4 weeks of the season in NFL history. Despite all of those great offensive figures, there are 5 teams, the Indianapolis Colts, Kansas City Chiefs, San Francisco 49ers, Baltimore Ravens, and Pittsburgh Steelers, who are holding opponents under 21 points per game. The Colts, number 1, allowing only 14 points per game. The Steelers were the 5th. They allow 19.3. Everybody else is below that.
I didn't even know that about the Pittsburgh Steelers right now.
In between that range.
We could have waited for the Steelers point total allowed. We really could have.
So there you go. Those are my useless stats for this particular week. We do hope that perhaps at some point during today's show, we'll be joined by Doc to give us his recipe of the week. And there he is. Speak of the devil.
Greetings, salutations, gentlemen. How are you?
We're doing well, Doc.
Doing good.
We're enjoying Dad Joke Thursday today on the podcast. Do you have any good dad jokes?
Dad jokes. No, usually most of my jokes are sports related. I coach basketball, so I get several fairly dirty basketball jokes, but no. I can tell you a good one. Your kid's probably going to have to be 14 or 15 years of age before you can give this one, but generally I do this once or twice during the NBA Finals. Why did the chicken cross the basketball court?
Why?
Because he heard the ref was blowing fouls. It's also a
boy.
chicken joke too. So yeah, I know.
If you want to hear
anyways,
the punchline, you're going to have to read the show notes on that one, ladies and gentlemen, because we like our clean, our clean markings in an Apple podcast.
Are you sure about that?
There was no swear words in that.
I mean, just because Neil's not here.
That's also true. Doc,
yeah.
Before you share your recipe with us this week, we were just talking about COVID-19, the effects it's having on the season, and saying how it seems pretty apparent that they could put a pause and reschedule the rest of the season so that if there are more outbreaks, that it'll be much easier to sort of fit every game in this year. But the NFL doesn't seem to want to do that.
True that. I'll let you in on a little conversation I had. I've worked 8 of the last 12 Super Bowls, and everything crescendos around Super Bowl. So, and who knows what the virus is going to look like come Feb. But I will tell you that this falls right into a conversation I had with the former president of Super Bowl, who actually made Super Bowl what it is as far as an international event. And he gave me a better than 50% chance that the Super Bowl was going to be pushed at least 2 weeks because of exactly what is happening. And as much as the parameters were set by the NFL and they thought their, didn't stink as far as their self-policing, I think we've got to remind ourselves that if in fact what the rumor is about the Tennessee Titans falls right in line with anything college. And we got to remember these are young people for the most part. And I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do. They're in a pickle right now, as you said. But I think we're going to see probably half of the Monday nights between now and the end of the year have double headers at least. But at the same time, I think we're probably more than an 80% chance of getting towards what James said, and that is one team playing 15, one playing 14, or one playing 16. And we look at percentages and what are we going to do when they're playoff contenders? And I think that's a lot of TBD right now, and we just got to play it week by week.
You said they're in a pickle, so they've just doused themselves in a bath of vinegar?
Yeah, and garlic.
Telling you, Dad Joke Thursday's a thing. It's going to stick.
Ross, please.
Doc, what's your recipe this week?
I gave you a simple one. We're all dealing with this crap, right? We got our own personal lives to deal with, but this is a recipe that I did about 10 years ago. And it was all around college football. As a matter of fact, I did it for college football on about 100 college football stations this week. Chili, cheese, and salsa. I used to be called the world's simplest appetizer, but I like the meat chili, but you can use veggie chili. But chili, cream cheese, salsa, chili powder, hot sauce, little smoked paprika, topped with cheddar cheese. It is just a fabulous, simple dip to make the day before. Do it on the grill, do it in the oven, 350, 25 to 30 minutes. Serve it with tortillas, crackers. I love grilled pitas. I tend to go to that, but real simple. And chili, cheese, and salsa, man, it's just a phenomenal game day appetizer. And it's for some dips. The story is when the Dallas Cowboys opened the big Yal Mahal, I did a recipe for Jerry Jones called Yal Mahal rolls. And what they were was kind of a Southwestern egg roll. And it was smoked chicken and black bean and all kinds of things synonymous with the South. And man, you deep fry those egg rolls and dip it in this chili, cheese, and salsa, and this thing turns into a dip. So, but on its own, it is just a phenomenal appetizer, as simple as like buffalo dip or the smoked onion dip, but it's a great dip. And that's it. Chili, cheese, and salsa.
I like it. Do you have a lock of the week this week? Is there any game you got your eyes on that you're like, oh, that's an easy pick for me?
No lock yet. What I'm waiting to see is obviously with the injuries, there's, half the teams are up in the air that'll affect my forecasted metrics. So probably by Friday, but no, I hate to tell you, I don't at this point.
No problem.
A lot of question marks just with my Saints. So.
That is Jeff Doc Dockery, is the co-host and creative director of Tailgate Homegate Nation Radio, award-winning gridiron chef. We'll have all of Doc's recipes on our Facebook page, and a little birdie tells me that they're working on the website, but I don't know how truthful that little birdie is. And the little birdie might be chirping some lies there, but we'll see. Doc, thanks so much. We know you got to get running.
Boys, listen, I'd love to be on with you. I love talking football. It's great therapy for me. But in the meantime, whatever we do, how many games are played, whatever it is, whatever you do between now and game day, have a delicious weekend of football. That's my
you too, Doc.
Wish to you guys, and all the best.
Pigskin Pick Em. Time to jump into these games. The Thursday night game, we had a Thursday night preview that is already out there for you to listen to. So if you missed it, go back and check it out. Chicago Tom joined me to break down the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the Chicago Bears. The Bucs are 10th in our power rankings. Bears are 15th. The Bucs are favored by 3.5 in this game. Guys, do you know the rock group that has 4 men that don't sing?
Oh, gosh.
I don't think
Mount Rushmore. Brady's on that Rushmore of quarterbacks, and we'll probably put some more big points on the board is the Buccaneers will beat the Chicago Bears. You guys agree with me on that particular point?
Yeah, but I'm not 100% confident in the Bucs beating the Bears. Look, the Bears looked horrible on Sunday against the Colts. I know it's a short turnaround for Nick Foles to right things, but there are injuries on both sides of the ball that had me concerned tonight, primarily for the Buccaneers. Chris Godwin is out. Leonard Fournette is doubtful. And Justin Watson is out as well. Scotty Miller and Mike Evans show up as questionable on the injury report, hip and ankle respectively. And for the Chicago Bears, Deion Bush, the safety, is out. The other safety, Sherrick McManus, is doubtful. And Darnell Mooney, their wide receiver, is questionable.
So what you're saying is there's a chance.
There is a chance.
Justin, you got anything quick on the Bucs Bears?
Mike Evans is going to have like 3 more 1-yard touchdown receptions, and the Bears are terrible.
There you go. So let's move to Sunday, where we have the Carolina Panthers versus the Atlanta Falcons. The Panthers have moved up to 18 in our power rankings. The Falcons have fallen to 30th, and yet Vegas has the Falcons as 2-point favorites. Why did the Scarecrow win an award? This is an old one. You guys should know the answer to this already.
This one is, I was going to say classic. It's an antique. Be careful with this one.
He was outstanding in his field behind defense. And defense is going to be the difference in this game because the Panthers allow 352.3 yards per game, but Atlanta allows 448.3. So this is going to be my Monty upset special.
Adam and Eve on a raft, a cup of muck, and an upset special.
And it helps that Atlanta is a little banged up on offense, too. Isn't that true there, James?
Yeah, both Calvin Ridley, Julio Jones, still on the injury report. They played this past Monday night, well, Julio at least for a half, but Julio still nursing a hamstring injury, Calvin Ridley nursing the thigh and the knee. And they are riddled on defense because that Monday night game did not do them any favors. Safeties Ricardo Allen, Keanu Neal, elbow and hamstring respectively will show up on the injury report as questionable. Defensive lineman Marlon Davidson has a knee injury. Grady Jarrett has a hip injury. And Tack McKinley has an inner thigh injury going on.
MJ has written in the last time the Dirty Birds started off 0-4 was 1999. I believe Prince wrote a song about partying in that particular year. One of the bright spots of this week's games is that fans will be allowed in the stadium. Somewhere in the neighborhood of 15,000 fans will be at the game. Let's hope that will light a fire under the Dirty Birds and finally get a win. The defense has improved. Has it really?
Did he watch Monday night's game?
And is the main reason they are 2-2. This being a divisional game, and with the Panthers' improved defense, it's going to be an interesting match. NFC South divisional games go one of two ways: either a blowout or a nail biter that comes down to who has the final possession of the game. Let's hope the Dirty Birds blow out the Panthers and come home with a victory. I read a lot of hope in MJ's write-ups of these games. I never read this is actually going to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all he has. He's a Falcons fan.
That's what I was about to say. Justin said it first.
It's very true. I honestly don't have a lot to say about what the offense and defense needs to do to get better because they've done those things each week and still cannot get a win. At this point, who knows what it will take. Personally, I'm in favor of getting rid of the GM, president, and VP. I'm finally on board with getting rid of Quinn, a defensive-minded head coach, and his defense looks like trash. Dirty Birds 31, Panthers 28. Well, there's a lot of hope in there, but I do think there needs to be a house cleaning in Atlanta. That is the one thing for sure.
Well, the last two coaches, current one included, were both former defensive coordinators, and the defense has never been a top 10 defense in the league in that time, from Mike Smith to now Dan Quinn. And that's probably the most perplexing thing about this. I mean, save maybe the Super Bowl year where they lost to the Patriots. That's one out of, 10 years at least between those two coaches?
Yeah, I was having that conversation with with MJ not that long ago, and my point was that I always thought the Falcons had a pretty okay roster, but he pointed out that there was okay offensively. You have a defensive-minded head coach who can't even find good bodies to play defense, let alone like coach them up. Which is I think it's very fair indictment on Dan Quinn, and I think he's probably run his course there.
Well, and I think you guys really have nailed it. They have quality players, but those quality players can never keep themselves healthy enough to play a full season. If all the guys that get hurt every year on their defensive side of the ball stayed healthy, their defense would be just fine. But that doesn't seem to happen, and it doesn't seem like they're in a hurry to replace those guys that can't stay healthy on the field. So it's an interesting quandary. And like I said, if you clean house, you bring in a whole new regime, you start over from scratch, and you try and get better in 3 years. 2 if you're lucky.
You hope.
Right.
Before we move on, notable names on the Panthers injury report are tackle Russell Okung and cornerback Eli Apple, but both are listed as questionable, so they should play.
How's Calvin Ridley on the Falcons? I asked for a friend who might have him on a fantasy team or something.
Calvin Ridley, knee and thigh, limited participant in practice today.
All right. Well, at least he's practicing. The first game that may, and actually it's probably the one that most likely won't get played on Sunday. It's the Buffalo Bills at the Tennessee Titans. The Bills are 4th in the power rankings. They moved up a spot. Finally, they broke out of the 5th spot. The Titans fall to 9th. The Bills are favored by 1 in this particular game. Why do vampires seem sick? They're always coughing. Goes right along with the COVID game. I mean, right?
Oh, that's low. That's just low. Come on, man.
Don't listen to this guy. Gold star.
The game might get pushed to Monday or Tuesday. I don't know. I know we do have a super fan battle between Jordan and Rob that will air on our Friday podcast. Ultimately, the way we're going to set this up is this is how the game would have played if it had been played, if it doesn't get played. At least that's the way that I'm setting it up. In any case, if they do end up playing, while the Titans have a better takeaway giveaway ratio, +5 versus +1, they haven't played or practiced in 2 weeks and probably are going to be without half their team. I don't think there's any possible way I could take the Titans in that particular sense with the Bills rolling like they have been, Justin.
Yeah, this is a bummer because honestly, as weird as it sounds, Titans and Bills can and should be one of the better games of the first half of the year. And now half of the Tennessee Titans are contracting COVID. It's, I think the Titans have about as many cases as New Zealand right now, which is not a good situation. So, and then if it does get pushed, all the different scenarios for how it screws up the schedule are atrocious. There's no good answer for it. So if they do play when they're supposed to, give me the Bills against the Tennessee Plague Masks, and I'll feel good about
it. Do we have a list of all the players on the Titans that are on the COVID list there, James?
I do not have one. And matter of fact, as they keep announcing more positive tests for the Titans this week since Sunday when they basically rescheduled the game against the Steelers, there hasn't been a list of names that's been made public to my knowledge. I've been looking, I haven't seen one. I know that it's pretty much across the board between players, coaching staff, and front office personnel in that building. But the only names that are showing up on the injury report that I have are receiver A.J. Brown with a knee injury and linebacker Derek Robinson. The Bill side, the entire receiving core, John Brown, Andre Roberts, Cole Beasley, all show up on their injury report. They're listed as questionable. Zach Moss is nursing a toe injury. Cornerback Tre'Davious White has a back injury. He did not practice on Wednesday. Linebackers Matt Milano and Delshon Phillips also show up as questionable on the injury report. This, again, like Justin said, this is a game that, we're basically being robbed of at this point of the season. And honestly, if this game is played at its scheduled time of 1 o'clock on Sunday, whatever Tennessee trots out, I have little confidence in them keeping this game close against Buffalo.
From the Tennessean, these are the players that have been placed on the COVID-19 reserve list. Defensive lineman Daquan Jones, long snapper Bo Brinkley, tight end Tommy Hudson, who's a practice squad player, outside linebacker Kamalale Correa, cornerback Christian Fulton, cornerback Greg Mabin, practice squad, wide receiver Adam Humphreys, wide receiver Cam Batson, who's a practice squatter, defensive lineman Jeffrey Simmons, fullback Kari Blassingame, and the most recent one was wide receiver Corey Davis.
So Corey Davis and Adam Humphrey are probably the most notable names there because those are the outside of checking
Jeffrey
to the tight
Simmons
end.
and Correa are pretty big players on their defense.
Yeah. But those are receivers on offense. That's going to be a problem because now who are you throwing to when the box is stacked for Henry?
Well, again, that friend of mine with his fantasy team would love for them to throw to Jonnu Smith just the entire time.
That friend, I'm using air quotes, friend of yours? Uh-huh. Right.
Yes.
Okay.
So that's a game, like I said, we'll have a super fan battle for it coming to you on our Friday podcast. So you'll be able to listen to a full breakdown of what might have been, could be, and still could happen. The Cincinnati Bank.
Dear listener, pro tip, just listen to it again next week.
Yeah, there you go. The Cincinnati Bengals are at the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens fall to 5th in the power rankings, which is absolutely outrageous. And the Cincinnati Bengals are 23rd. The Ravens are favored by 13 in this game. It will mark the 5th time in NFL history in which the reigning league MVP and the most recent number 1 overall pick meet as starting quarterbacks. The reigning MVP has won 3 of the previous 4 meetings. The last time this occurred, of course, I don't have the right thing pulled up here. Here it is. The last time this occurred was in 2012 when Aaron Rodgers was the defending MVP, faced Andrew Luck, and Andrew Luck stole the win, 30-27. The other times was Peyton Manning versus Alex Smith, then the number 1 overall pick for the San Francisco 49ers. Ken Stabler versus Steve Bartkowski. If you don't know, he was the quarterback for Atlanta back in 1975. And the oldest matchup of this is John Brody for the San Francisco 49ers versus Jim Plunkett, then the number 1 overall pick for the New England Patriots.
New England Patriots, yeah.
Back in 1971. Yeah. What do you call a factory that sells passable products? A satisfactory, which Joe Burrow is. He's very satisfactory, but the Ravens are just going to be too much here. I will take the Ravens. And quite honestly, my rule of thumb is in the NFL, you don't give double-digit points. But in this case, I don't know. I think I'll take the Bengals with 13, but the Ravens should still win this game quite easily.
The only reason I would be iffy about the double-digit points is it is technically still a divisional matchup, which always makes things weird. I just want to point out how amazing it is we spent that much time talking about MVPs and number 1 picks when usually the MVP is the MVP because he's quarterbacking the best team in the league, and the number 1 pick is the number 1 pick because he's on the worst team in the league, and somehow we made like a 3-minute conversation out of that.
Yeah, of course we can. We can make a 3-minute conversation about lots of things.
Oh, man. Notable injuries for the Cincinnati Bengals include Marquise Alexander, the cornerback, and Geno Atkins, defensive tackle, both listed as questionable. For the Baltimore Ravens, this is a long list, but most notably is Lamar Jackson, who sat out practice on Wednesday with a knee issue that isn't considered serious, according to Adam Schefter of ESPN. Other names on the Ravens injury report include receiver Chris Moore, cornerback Marcus Peters, cornerback Jimmy Smith, tight end Nick Boyle, guard Tyree Phillips, wide receiver Marquise Brown, and defensive end Derek Wolfe. So, it's quite a long list. All of these guys are listed as questionable. And while the Bengals shouldn't be a problem, this is still a divisional game and anything can happen.
It's interesting. The Ravens bye week is week 8.
Mm-hmm.
So odd that they're giving their quarterback a quote unquote veterans day off to rest a knee problem that's not a problem.
Well, considering how they run their offense, and he is one of 2 people who is carrying this offense literally, along with the backfield of running backs there. You kind of want to rest a knee considering how many designed runs he has during a game and how many broken plays he just takes 20 to 50 yards.
It's definitely something to keep an eye on here.
Can we just take a second to recognize how A.J. Green has completely fallen off the cliff and is not even a remotely impactful player anymore? And suddenly, somebody flipped the light switch.
Why is this a surprise? I don't understand where the surprise is. He hasn't played in the NFL for 2 years.
But I just always harken back to all the debate when he and Julio were in the same draft, and the first couple of years of their career, it was pretty competitive. Who's going to be better? And now they couldn't have diverged harder. And it's and maybe I'm just salty because I have him stashed at the bottom of a fantasy roster. And
oh gosh,
poke with a stick meme do something, but he needs to get out there and start doing something.
Pro tip, Justin, you're supposed to say you have a friend who has him stashed on a fantasy roster somewhere. You're not supposed to actually admit it.
Oh, man.
I'm from the Pacific Northwest. We don't have friends here.
Oh, okay. Yeah, he hasn't played in 2 years with leg injuries. To me, it's not that much of a surprise. I sort of kind of saw it going into the season where all hopes and dreams were hanging on an older A.J. Green with a busted up leg. To me, it just seemed kind of foolish to think that he was going to be able to come back and be the old A.J. Green, even with the miracles of modern medicine. But you're out of the league for 2 years. It's tough to come back. What's that, James?
He's contributed in the 4 games they've played this year. Probably not against the Eagles because Slay basically took him out the game. I think he only had 4 catches for 39 yards. But the other 3 contests, he's made an impact as an, okay regular target, but he hasn't had the breakout performances that we're used to because, again, he's practically been out of the league 2 years with the leg and foot injuries.
Well, but to Justin's point, he's supposed to be Julio Jones. And quite honestly, Julio Jones hasn't really been Julio Jones this year.
Right. But the difference is that even though Julio Jones hasn't been Julio Jones, Matt Ryan is still force-feeding him the ball.
Well, you have a rookie. Things change with a new gunslinger in town.
Exactly.
The Las Vegas Raiders are at the Kansas City Chiefs. We will have this superfan battle for you on our Friday podcast between Monty and Nick. The Raiders are 17th in the power rankings. The Chiefs remain number 1. They are favored by 13 points in this game. The Chiefs are the first team in NFL history to start 4-0 in 4 consecutive seasons, which I just find fascinating. With all of the dynasties, not just my own in New England, but the Cowboys and the Niners, I can't believe that this is the first time in the history of the NFL that a team has started 4-0 for 4 straight years. That seems like it shouldn't have been that difficult to have accomplished. Maybe it's just me.
Yeah, it seems like it, but, there's always that hiccup early in the season. I mean, your team notwithstanding, look at how many 2-2 starts they've had, and we've been questioning whether they're going to get to the Super Bowl or not, and they still somehow end up with the best record in the conference. Those Cowboys teams always had a hookup because, they needed that early season punch in the mouth, in the 90s to get themselves right. The 49ers, oftentimes had that division opponent they overlooked, whether it was the Falcons getting lucky, the Rams, or the 49ers. I mean, sorry, not the New Orleans Saints in the 80s. So it's not that hard to believe.
I suppose. Do you know the last thing my grandfather said to me before he kicked the bucket? Grandson, watch how far I can kick this bucket. Now, watch how many how much bucket kicking the Chiefs do to the Raiders in this one. They've won 10 of the past 11, including a 40-9 drubbing in December of last year. I'm going to take the Chiefs, and this time I will not give the Raiders the points. I will give the Raiders the points, and I'll still take the Chiefs to win this game. The Chiefs will win this game easily. We all agree that the Chiefs are going to win. I don't know if you're all giving the points or not.
Absolutely not.
Okay. You think the Raiders are going to cover?
Again, division game, double digits.
It's the Raiders.
Yeah, and look, even though, what was it, last season or the year before where they put up 28 points in a quarter and that was all they needed for the entire game, I'm not banking on that again.
Justin, you're out west. What do you see here?
Yeah, the only thing is, again, division game obviously gives me a little bit of pause. Like, Derek Carr's quietly putting together an okay season. He has yet to throw an interception. He's thrown for 8 touchdowns. He's and obviously passer rating's not the best at it. He's kept his passer rating above 100, I think, in every game this year, which is a huge improvement over where he's been. I think that there is a potential for this game to be competitive into the, like last week, competitive into the third quarter. And I think as much as it, will hurt our Chiefs superfan for me to say it, like Patrick Mahomes is playing great, but he's not playing like out of this world great like he has the last couple of years. Bill Belichick signed him. He's made some couple of boneheaded throws. He just hasn't had to pay for them. I think there's potential for this game to be at least closer than everybody thinks.
Got a point.
Yeah. Any key injuries to know about here, James?
For the Chiefs, Chris Jones, the defensive tackle, has that inner thigh injury going on. He's listed as questionable. For the Raiders, if you have Derek Carr on your fantasy team, I'd be scared because here are his targets on the injury report. Tight end Darren Waller's nursing a knee injury. Wide receivers Brian Edwards, foot and ankle. Wide receiver Henry Ruggs, a third, knee and hamstring. Backup running back Jalen Richard, ankle injury. And on the defense, Keyshawn Nixon and Nevin Lawson, the corners, are both listed as questionable, along with Jonathan Hankins and Nick Kwiatkowski, the linebacker, still showing up on the injury report. Whether he plays or not is still up in the air.
Well, that doesn't sound good. The Los Angeles Rams are at the Washington football team. The Rams are 8th in the power rankings now. The Washington football team is 29th. Rams favored by 7. Why was the coach yelling at a vending machine? Wanted his quarterback. And Ron Rivera has made the switch, benching Dwayne Haskins, not for old one-leg Alex Smith. No, for Kyle Allen. Washington scoring 19.8 points per game, allowing 28 points per game. If you flip it, that's what the Rams stats are. They score 26.5 points per game, allow 20 points per game. I'm going to go with the Rams, and I'm going to feel pretty comfortable with that pick.
Yeah, it's not a hard pick, and I don't think it matters really who Washington starts at quarterback. Again, they find themselves in a situation like so many other teams where, I get it. The goal is to go out and win every game, every week, and sometimes that just doesn't happen. But from the outside looking in, I'm pretty sure there are fans just looking at the situation like you should be winless right now, no matter how well you've played. Granted, Philadelphia's, pissed the bed in week 1. But, of the teams they played and when they played them and how those teams are playing compared to Washington, not to mention this vaunted defensive line that was supposed to get after quarterbacks really hasn't done that since week 1 to any, consistency. Yeah, they got a couple of shots in on Kyler Murray. They couldn't really get to Baker Mayfield because they ran the ball effectively. And, at this point, benching Haskins, I don't think that's the answer because Rivera's reasoning is that Kyle Allen knows the system better than Haskins does. Okay, that's perfectly fine. Understand the, unique situations we had this offseason where you change coaching staff and offensive systems. There was no OTAs. There was no preseason, and you expect his development to be what at this point? second-year quarterback, first year in a brand new system. I get it. This is the nature of the beast of football, but unfortunately, this happens all too often, and head coaches bail far too quickly. I'd say give him a couple more weeks before you go to the benching of him. For Kyle Allen, who basically lost to the same Washington team last season in Carolina with the same offense. So how much better will Kyle Allen be? Because he didn't light the world on fire after those two wins in Carolina last season when Cam Newton was hurt.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if they're just protecting Alex Smith from himself and they're trying to tell Alex, dude, we really don't want you to play quarterback this year, but we're paying you too much to just cut you. So we're not going to actually put you on the field. But to me, Alex Smith gives this Washington team the best chance to win.
Yeah, I've got two thoughts. First, your joke about the head coach in the vending machine. Why is it I can only picture Andy Reid in that scenario? And Dwayne Haskins has been awful, like really, really, really bad. But this division is, let's be honest, this is the Dwayne Haskins of divisions. So you don't have to win a lot of games to win this division. No offense, James. And so I really think that if this guy can come in and win a game or two in the next month, maybe by then Alex Smith is ready to play some football. And then suddenly, because of how bad this division is, you might suddenly have, a chance to win the division despite being like, 2-6 or something atrocious like that.
Well, Neil did give us a write-up, even though he was unable to join us this week. So it's now the Kyle Allen show, puke face emoji, otherwise known as America's latest ish show. Well, there you go. Yeah, he's keeping up his streak of having at least one bleep in every podcast. It's doing a good job at that. Sadly, my great hope that we'd be able to draft Penei Sewell next year is over. We're likely back in the quarterback stakes. Thankfully, there's another one-year OSU quarterback waiting for us, Justin Fields. What is impressive is how quickly the Washington vibe has rubbed off on Ron Rivera, a solid coach with a great history of excellence, and we've reduced him to Jim Zorn in just a few months. Now that is championship-level crap. Even included the poop emoji. How nice of him. Anywho, a good, solid loss hoves into view. Another one. I don't think Chase Young plays, and McLaurin is hurting too. Allen will look decent, then throw the game away with a couple of horrendous picks. Rams 31, Washington 23. I think that's way too high scoring for this particular.
For Washington, at least.
Certainly. Seems like too much.
Yeah, probably is. Before we waste more time on this game that should be a butt whooping for Washington, the entire receiving core, Dontrell Emmons, Steven Sims Jr., and Terry McLaurin all show up on the injury report. So good luck, Kyle Allen, throwing to your wide receivers if they even play. They are listed as questionable. Chase Young is still listed as questionable with that inner thigh injury that kept him out the last 2 weeks. And Jonathan Allen, defensive tackle, also shows up as questionable. For the Rams, the only players of note here are Cam Akers, the running back, whose ribs kept him limited on Wednesday. Linebackers Kenny Young and Micah Kaiser, knee and inner thigh injury, respectively. Neither practiced on Wednesday.
I will say this about that. And when your backup quarterback comes in, he tends to have a better chemistry with the third and the fourth wide receiver because those are the guys that he's used to practicing with every week. Mm-hmm. So if the starters are all injured and the backup guys are all getting the start this particular week, then maybe there's something there for Kyle Allen. But I mean, I'm literally grasping at the shortest of straws here to give him any sort of chance.
Yeah.
The Arizona Cardinals, speaking of no chance, the Arizona Cardinals are at the New York Jets this week.
Hold on, pause before you move on. Breaking news from NFL Network that the Kansas City Chiefs and the New England Patriots had no positive tests today.
Oh, that is good news. I knew the Patriots didn't have a positive, but I did not know about the Kansas City Chiefs. That is good to hear.
No positive tests since they played earlier this week on Monday instead of Sunday.
Let's move now to the Arizona Cardinals and the New York Jets. The Cardinals 16th in the power rankings. The Jets, I mean, there's no number lower than 32 in our power rankings, but if there was one, the Jets would have it. The Cardinals are only 7-point favorites on the road in this particular game. Why is Peter Pan always flying? He never lands. The Jets haven't landed a win yet this season, and now they're going with Joe Flacco. I mean, I locked the Cardinals in and lost on the Cardinals. But, I mean, there's no way in the world the Cardinals can lose this game.
Well, you locked the Cardinals in on the wrong week, first of all. Should have locked them in when they were playing Washington. As far as this game, well, Sam Darnold is out because of that shoulder injury he sustained in their last game where he got slammed down by a Broncos lineman last Thursday night. So he is officially out for this game and probably some time. They claim that it's just a 1-week injury because of the AC joint. I don't think this is going to be a 1-week injury. So expect to see Flacco start next week as well. And yeah, if anybody still has hope in Flacco playing even solid quarterback, just give up on that right now, unless you're a family member, an apologist, or just a diehard fan of his.
Justin, do you have anything more you want to add to this?
I think Kyler Murray is going to be a lot of fun to watch in this game. I think this will be a chance for him to do all the stuff he does best and just absolutely shred the Jets. If I were Sam Darnold, I would be nursing that shoulder injury for a couple more weeks because there's no way that Gase is going to be there in late November.
Yeah, if I were Sam Darnold, I'd just my shoulder took a whole year to heal my shoulder. Oh,
right.
Doctor a fiver to tell him that there's something going on there, guys. Got to shut him down.
It was terrible. Battle of Pennsylvania. The Philadelphia Eagles are 22nd in our power rankings, but number 1 in the NFC East. The Pittsburgh Steelers are 6th in the power rankings, and they are favored by 7 points. It's also a battle of the top pass rushing defenses so far in 2020. Philly actually leads the NFL with 17 sacks, while the Steelers rank second with 15. I would avoid the sushi if I were you because it's a little fishy, just like that last stat. One thing does not look like the other. The Eagles have no shot against the Steelers. There's another no-shot game here, James.
Well, as far as the stats looking fishy, this is what happens when you play the Cincinnati Bengals and the San Francisco 49ers. I'm sorry, the XFL 49ers, if you will, in back-to-back weeks with their depleted lines and inexperienced quarterback play. Because I believe it was 7 sacks against the Bengals and 8 sacks against the Niners on Sunday night. So, yeah, when you have back-to-back games like that with your sack totals, I'm not going to be mad about it. But at the same time, yay. Maybe it'll still some type of confidence and hope in the team overall, because outside of the defense, for the most part, Sunday night, the offense still looks spotty. And while Carson Wentz played a little better, I'm still angry at the play calling, because I'm going to say this for the rest of the season. Miles Sanders should be the focal point of this offense, not Carson Wentz. I don't understand what it is that they're trying to, force Carson Wentz to be the superstar quarterback. He's not. He is average to good at best, and that's me being kind right now because I have a lot of 4-letter words I can use to describe him, and I don't want Jay to use the censors too much. But this is a team that, exemplifies next man up to the utmost, and yet we have a quarterback who won't trust anyone around him outside of the tight ends and the running backs when he's throwing passes. And if you don't utilize the wide receivers as he finally did against the 49ers, then everything gets packed into the middle of the field. And while you have guys wide open on the outside, you're trying to force plays and you end up face down in the dirt because you're getting sacked. Oh, and by the way, you're probably fumbling the ball because you didn't throw it away or out of bounds or just run when you have the opportunity to do so.
James,
Yeah,
let me ask you this about Carson Wentz, because it was only a few years ago that he was on his way to putting up superstar type numbers. And I wonder if that's more a function of what the offense was. The RPO was this new thing that nobody had ever seen before. And now it seems like defenses have figured it out and it's not that big a deal anymore. Is that what's going on with Carson Wentz?
Well, it wasn't new at the time. I think it became more in vogue then. And they didn't expect Carson Wentz to run it so much because, I mean, by looks alone, he's not the, RPO quarterback you look at. But I think this is a case of this offense evolving and him not evolving with it to where they phase out the RPO a la Russell Wilson in Seattle. You look at his first couple of years, RPO was a staple, and now they're a traditional drop back passing team with the occasional RPO once or twice a game. With Philadelphia, that should probably still be a staple of this offense, and it's not. And I can't blame that on personnel because for the most part, the offensive line, even the backups, have been there for the entirety of Wentz's career. You can't say the running backs don't know how to run it because that's pretty much all that's been fed to them as far as when they're lining up in shotgun. And, the only inexperience is on the wide receivers, but he's had these guys for a year now. And if he hasn't developed any type of chemistry to throw that quick slant over the middle, I don't understand what's going on here. But, yeah, it probably should still be a staple of this offense because he can't run it the way it is right now. He can't drop back and pass 40 times a game and expect to be successful.
And Justin, the Steelers are looking like the Steelers of old now that Ben Roethlisberger's healthy.
Yeah, I'm not totally buying the Steelers as much as other people. I think that they're fine. They're good. I also think they don't have any amazing wins. But here's what is motivating a lot of my pick in this game. The Steelers and the Eagles have scored almost the exact same number of points this year. And the Eagles have played 4 games, the Steelers have played 3. This is not a competitive matchup.
Gee, thanks, Justin. I feel much better already. I really appreciate that.
And
I mean, not that I'm picking Philly to win this game, but still.
49ers last week, I thought that was beautiful. I appreciate it. Go Carson Wentz, go Philly.
Notable names on the injury report, and there's some alarming ones. Starting with Jason Kelsey, the All-Pro center, Nate Herbert, the guard, both listed as questionable. Of course, Deshaun Jackson and Alshon Jeffrey, the wide receivers, are listed as questionable. Both practiced this week. I don't expect either to play, if much at all, on Sunday. You can expect 5 to 10 plays tops, and then they'll go out with the same injury. Marcus Epps shows up as questionable, along with defensive backs Avonte Maddox and Rodney McLeod. Lane Johnson will not go on injury reserve or get surgery for his ankle injury that he had sustained on Sunday. He's still listed as questionable and might play. For the Pittsburgh Steelers, wide receivers Deontay Johnson, Juju Smith-Schuster both show up on the injury report with toe and knee respectively. Cornerback Joe Hayden and linebacker Marcus Allen.
Someone should tell these NFL players it's just easier to get COVID to get on the injury report than, all these injuries that are mounting up across the league. So if it's not COVID, it's an inner thigh injury or hamstring or ankle or whatever. It's a rough season for the NFL for sure.
Yeah, definitely. No preseason would do that.
The Jacksonville Jaguars are at the Houston Texans. The Jaguars 24th in the power rankings. Texans fall to 27th. Vegas has the Texans favored by 6, but even with home field advantage, the power rankings will take the Jaguars in this particular game. Why did the Invisible Man turn down the job offer? He couldn't see himself doing it, just like the Texans will no longer see Bill O'Brien as their head coach. I bet Romeo Crennel likes telling dad jokes at age 73, the oldest head coach now in the NFL and NFL history. Maybe it's closer to grandpa jokes, but the NFL is no joke. Boy, I'm really tying them in on this one. And I think the Jaguars will steal one from the reeling Texans. Gardner Minshew aiming for his fourth in a row versus the division with 3+ touchdown passes and a 90+ rating. And running back James Robinson, it leads all rookies in scrimmage yards, 446, and tied for the lead in touchdowns with 3. I'm going to take the Jaguars. I guess this is probably a better Monty upset special. You guys are disagreeing with me, Justin.
Adam and Eve on a raft, a cup of muck, and an upset special.
Yeah, I think there is a pretty well-established history in the NFL of that fired the head coach bump. I think that everybody in the building knows when a coach is at the end of his rope and is at the end of it. And there's reports coming out of Houston that J.J. Watt was getting into it with the coach and the team was effectively revolting against him. And so I think that when you take that factor, then you bring in somebody like Romeo Crennel, who has been a head coach before, is really well respected in the league. You know, he's not an amazing head coach, or he would have already been a head coach, but like, I don't expect him to be, overwhelmed by it. And then you have a team that's going to be really, really motivated with the departure of a head coach they frankly did not like and was honestly terrible. They'll be really motivated now with the new head coach to show well for him. They're also playing for their jobs going forward. And there is this, sense of like, okay, we got what we wanted. Now we have to like do something with it. I think the Houston Texans that we see this weekend are going to be by far the best Houston Texans team we've seen all year.
I don't know. If I'm Deshaun Watson, I think I'm coming down with a cold.
He's going to go get some smooches and just ride the pine for the rest of the year.
Yeah, pretty much.
The interesting thing in this entire situation with the coaching change there, Crennel was a head coach before he got the Cleveland job after he left New England, is who the Texans look to hire next season and whether this new head coach will be offensive minded or defensive minded. And if he's offensive minded, does he keep Deshaun Watson? Because look, I know they just gave Deshaun Watson a contract and they pretty much have to find a coach who's going to come in and say, I want Deshaun Watson to still be my quarterback, not someone who's going to come in and try to undermine the groundwork that has been laid as far as the talent on this team, as far as what's left.
Sell to a new coach. There's nothing left. They have the highest payroll in the league. All of their draft picks have been given away. Deshaun Watson is the only thing you can try and sell.
Look,
man, that's terrible to sit there and be like, our team is in such a hole. We have to give up our best player to get better. That's not a recipe for success.
It's not. But at the same time, how many times do we see offensive-minded coaches come in and change the entire offense within 2 years? And whoever's been there as the established stars, whether it's quarterback, wide receiver, running back, they jettison them because they want someone else, either from their old team or someone that they want to build around from the college ranks. And it's not uncommon. It happens. It's happening right now in Washington. I'm not saying that, we already talked about Haskins. I'm not saying he's being undermined, but let's be real. That whole thing is not playing out well, and I'd hate to see the same thing happen in Houston.
Yeah, and sure that I think probably isn't playing well in the locker room. All right, so imagine this scenario. Let's just say Adam Gase is fired and he becomes available.
No. The first half of that,
run fast.
How much would it take to talk James off of the roof, I guess is my question.
Oh, boy.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. That would be a problem. And just to update what we talked about on the Tuesday podcast, we told the story of Jake Easterby, who will be the interim GM. However, it appears the team will be looking for a new GM and coach at the end of the year. So Jake Easterby, while he'll be the GM for now, is probably not keeping that role.
Honestly, if I was the owner, I would see if I could keep my interim guys for another year, because next year with no draft picks and no money, like all you're going to do is poison the fan base in the well against whoever comes in because the season's going to be so terrible. I would just see if I could, pay them enough money to ride them out another year and then offer the job to a new regime.
Something to consider. Quick hits on the injury. Jordan Atkins, a tight end, is still in concussion protocol. On the defensive side of the ball, you got Brandon Dunn, the tackle, linebackers Dylan Cole and Bernardrick McKinney. Laramie Tunsil is still showing up as questionable For the Jacksonville Jaguars, we got Miles Jack, Laviska Shenault, Josh Allen, C.J. Henderson, and Cam Robinson all showing up as questionable.
That doesn't bode well for my upset special defenders all hurt. But then again, Deshaun Watson, I hear, is feeling a headache coming on. So we'll see. Hey, we're already at the 4 o'clock games. This is amazing. And our first 4 o'clock game kicks off at 4:05. It is the Miami Dolphins at the San Francisco 49ers. The Dolphins 25th in the power rankings, the Niners at 13. They are favored by 9 points in this particular one. What do you call a guy with a rubber toe? Roberto. I don't know if Tua Tagovailoa has a rubber toe, but he has other bionic parts, and people are wondering if this is the game we finally see him play. Niners are averaging 26.8 points per game with their XFL team, and the starters are coming back, and the defense is only allowing 17.8 points per game. Lock in the Niners. This is my lock of the week. James, you've got this as a lock, but you had like 5 locks on the sheet.
Look, we're at that point in the season where, like, if you're struggling for locks, here are some suggestions. This is just one of, like you said, 4 or 5 I have for this week. And honestly, look, the Dolphins, as game as they've been and the one win they got on Thursday night against Jacksonville, this is a team that, for whatever reason, just can't get over the hump and win consistently. They've been in every game this season. So in that regard, I guess that's a step in the right direction. They just need to put the baby to bed and actually win those games. They can't do it. And, you're facing a 49ers team that pretty much has a sour taste in their mouth because they're thinking, like, if we're fully healthy, we're undefeated. But, coming off that loss Sunday night to the Eagles, I'm pretty sure it doesn't sit well. They had to bench Mullins for Beathard. I'm pretty sure that didn't go over well in the quarterback room this week. I will have an update on that shortly with Jimmy Garoppolo, but specifically for the Dolphins, look, if you listen to the show for the last couple of years, you've heard me say absolutely nothing nice about Ryan Fitzpatrick, and I'm not going to start now. So you might as well move on to Tua. Look, if he is 100% healthy, because obviously there was no preseason or OTAs, which he should be. So if he's 100% healthy and he understands how this offense should be run on any level, I don't care if it's a novice level. If he has any knowledge on how to run this offense, even at a basic level, start him now and just get the growing pains out of the way for the remaining 12 weeks of the season and just get it over with. Just go ahead and rip the Band-Aid off, go 1-15, 2-14, 3-13 if you're lucky. Just get it over with. I mean, look, you got 2 games coming up against the New York Jets at some point this season. You might as well put Tua in now so you can at least have a chance to win those 2 games, if nothing else. Well,
our Miami Dolphins superfan is MIA. Apparently he started spelling Miami and took off. But they've got to be getting anxious when you see how Joe Burrow is doing, how Justin Herbert is doing. And Justin Herbert wasn't even supposed to start, and he's been doing pretty good. And he's not even supposed to be a good quarterback, if you ask Neil. So, I mean, Tua has got to come. At this point, if you're a Miami Dolphins fan, you've got to be salivating over Tua.
Yeah, I mean, but we don't know the injury situation, right? I mean, he had a season-ending injury last year, and like James said, with no preseason, I don't know how safe it is to trot him out there. And, you didn't draft him for this year. You drafted him for the future. I think, the fact that you have, Fitzmagic is like the ultimate bridge player, right? Like, he's not good, but he will be in a couple of games, and he'll get you some wins, and he'll entertain the fan base with his beard and being, goofy Harvard guy. But like, I still think the model for developing a quarterback, even though we've seen success starting rookies, hasn't really changed. Like, if you can sit him for a year or two, that really is the best way to develop him. I think a player, especially a quarterback, can get ruined by being rushed to the field and being subjected to, hit and failure and interception and like a fan base that turns against them. before they're ready for it. And so if I
but Justin, this is a fan base that wants him out there. I don't think they turn against him.
Yeah,
even if he goes winless for the rest of the season, they'll still cheer him.
They like, what do they say? Like, the backup quarterback is always the most popular guy, right? It's because he hasn't played, right? When he starts playing, you're going to have a certain segment that's like, you know what, as long as I see him, throw the ball around a little bit and do okay, we're happy for it. But there's going to be people who are he threw so many interceptions, he did this boneheaded play, and they turn on him. And on top of that, you're not going to win the division. You're not going to go to the playoffs.
Exactly. You might as well play him now. Get it over with.
That's exactly why you shouldn't, because you can ruin a young player by rushing them, especially a quarterback, too early. We've seen that way too many times. And I have a lot of mean things to say about the 49ers, so I don't want to spend all this time talking about Tua. All right.
You're welcome for Sunday night. That's all I could do.
Right. Okay, so let's talk about the 49ers, because I think you guys are badly overrating them. I think they're overrated in our power rankings. I think everybody's overrating the 49ers, and I simply don't get it. Their roster is a disaster with injuries. That is known. Like, that's fairly well established. The fact that Jimmy Garoppolo is a terrible quarterback, notwithstanding, when he comes back, he has to be better than what we've seen so far, which is 2 weeks ago, I would have said that I actually thought Nick Mullins was a pretty solid quarterback, but boy, he was a disaster.
It was a giant.
You talk about the thing we've talked about, like their point differential, things like that. So their 2 wins are against the New York Giants and the New York Jets, the 2 worst teams in our power rankings by far. Like, if we could drop the Jets down to 40 on the power rankings, we would, and if we could take the Giants down to like 36, we would. They're such terrible teams. But that's the only wins they have. The other 2 games that they had are against the other 2 games they had are against a 2-2 Arizona Cardinals, who are not very impressive, who beat them, and against the 1-2-1 Philadelphia Eagles, who, and James, I say this with all the love in the world, are not impressive, and they lost both of those games. I'm sorry, the 49ers stink.
I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that their star quarterback, whom you called trash, has not been playing. And I believe that star quarterback is coming back this week.
Well, first of all, you're both too far in either direction. He's not a star, and he's not trash.
Have you looked at him? He is a star, my friend. That is a pretty man.
Look, just because you want him back in New England doesn't mean he's a star.
Well, apparently Deshaun Watson's got a headache and heading our way. This is I'd rather have Deshaun Watson.
Just because Jimmy gives you a raging patriot doesn't mean that you got to look at him that way.
Right. Starting with the Miami Dolphins, because they have the shorter injury. Start with the Miami Dolphins, since they have the shorter injury report this week. Quarterback Byron Jones still nursing that inner thigh and Achilles. Tight end Durham Smythe is nursing a knee injury. Defensive end Shaq Lawson has a shoulder and illness. Wide receiver Devontae Parker has an ankle injury. Moving on to the laundry list of the 49ers. And
quick pause there. Whenever I hear illness on the injury report, I mean, come on. Like, you can't list a guy with an illness these days.
You can't, but it's still there. And it's been like that the last couple of weeks. A number of guys have been listed on injury reports with illness. So we know it's too early for the flu, and these names haven't dropped in any COVID news. So cold, fever, I don't know.
Yeah. All right, 49ers.
First and foremost, Jimmy Garoppolo. Let's see here. Ankle injury, was a limited participant in practice on Wednesday. Whether he starts or not still hasn't been determined, but he is listed as questionable. Ezekiel Ansah suffered a biceps tear in Sunday's game against Philadelphia. He is out for the year. Cornerback Kwan Williams is doubtful with an ACL sprain that he suffered during the game against the Eagles on Sunday night. The rest of the injury report goes as follows. Raheem Mostert with a knee injury is questionable. He was limited in practice on Wednesday. Wide receivers Dante Pettis and Trent Taylor, ankle and knee respectively, were both limited participants in practice on Wednesday. They are listed as questionable. And cornerbacks, Ahkello Witherspoon, Jimmy Ward, and Emmanuel Mosley, hamstring, wrist, and concussion respectively. Ward and Witherspoon were limited in practice. Sorry, Witherspoon was limited. Ward was a non-participant. Mosley's in a concussion protocol. So Miami has a chance no matter how this game shakes out.
They do not have a chance. The 49ers are a lock. I wouldn't worry about it.
Not.
That friend of mine with the fantasy team also has a lot of Deebo Samuel, so he's very excited for the number of touchdowns the star quarterback will be throwing to Deebo this week. I say
not a lot.
I say at least seven to Deebo Samuel.
Sponsored by a beverage company to quench your thirst there, Pod?
No. The Indianapolis Colts are at the Cleveland Browns. The Colts move up to 7 in our power rankings. The Browns move up to 14. Vegas has the Colts as 1.5 point favorites in this one. Pete and Repeat were walking down the street. Pete went home. Who was left?
Repeat. We know this. Don't.
Pete and Repeat were walking down the street, and I could have repeated my first joke about the scarecrow and defense because the Colts have the league's best defense and allow a mere 236.3 yards per game. That is number 1 in the NFL versus the Browns, who allow 402.3 yards per game. I don't know why you guys are going against the power rankings. I learned my lesson the last 2 weeks. Me and the power rankings going with the Colts. You guys foolishly have fallen into the trap of the most inconsistent team in the NFL.
Go ahead, Justin. I'll let you start.
Okay, so let me just start this by saying the San Francisco 49ers stink.
Nice.
So I am basing a lot of this off of the Browns this past week. I think that they played significantly better. I think that they showed some signs that they're figuring out how to utilize their weapons offensively. So a lot of this is honestly trajectory and where I think they're at, maybe not as a snapshot of the overall season so far, but where they're at currently. And based on that, I think that the Browns have a great shot to win this. The only thing that I, potentially worry about is that they're the Browns and they could, drop, go back into their browniness and stink up the joint out of the 49ers.
Yeah, as much as the Browns, came out on top against the Cowboys, they did their best to hand that game back to the Cowboys.
Yeah, and that's my only concern.
The first team that Dak Prescott and that offense did that to this year, though.
Look, the way the Browns played on offense is pretty much how they should be playing every week. It should be ground and pound, limit Baker Mayfield's chances to throw the ball, especially when down and distance favors running the football. When it's 2nd and 5 or 3rd and 3 and less, turn around, hand it to that backfield, no matter who's back there. Right now, Kareem Hunt will be the lead guy, and just pound away at opposing defenses. Yes, the Colts are number 1 in the league in defense. I think they have the best passing defense as well. That's not something you want to have Baker Mayfield throw it into 35 plus times, this week. Keep the game close, pound them with the running game. At the end, tacklers get tired, especially when they're constantly being run into by the same guys over and over and over again, and just wear them down physically. Mix in a little bit of play action. OBJ and Jarvis Landry would just have to deal with 8 targets max, this week, and hopefully they catch at least 6 of them and turn them into big plays. But mainly, and I'm going to keep riding this all season, no matter what their record is. I don't care if they end up 10-6 or 11-5. I don't trust Phillip Rivers, because no matter how well this team is playing, he will inexplicably try to give this game away at a crucial moment. He will throw an interception, whether that's early or late. He's got one, I think, in every single game this season. So that's at least 4. I don't trust him. I never will. At this point in his career, I will never trust Phillip Rivers in any offense throwing the football. It's just not something you should rely on. And if push comes to shove and they have to rely on him to drive the ball down his field, I expect the pass rush of the Browns to make life miserable for him.
It's easy to say that the Browns should be running their offense through a ground and pound when you have a Chubb at running back. But Chubb is not going to be there this week, and Kareem Hunt might also miss this week. So the ground and pound portion of this offense has been grounded.
No, they still have another running back, and I keep blanking on his name at the moment.
Ernest Johnson and Damian Hillard are the other two guys on the roster.
Yeah, give them the rock. Now, look, and as much as people want to, look
against the number one defense in the league.
Hold on, wait. As much as people want to put everything on the running backs when a running game is doing well, they often overlook the offensive line. And if you go back and watch that game against Dallas, you'll see offensive line pulling and getting downfield to linebackers and DBs on a lot of those Chubb and Hunt runs, especially the ones that took place in between the tackles. I mean, they were getting downfield 5 to 10 yards before they were even touched by a Dallas defender in most cases. So, yeah, lean on the running game. Let that offensive line play bully ball and push that front four of the Colts around, and just rely on that and mix in play action from time to time. There's no reason to change up what they did against Dallas this week.
By the way, if I'm going to make a joke about ground and pound and Chubbs, then I might as well leave Doc's joke in the podcast. So that explains why you still heard the punchline, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh gosh, injury report for both.
Was you talking about Jimmy Garoppolo again?
Oh god. Injury report starting with the Browns. You mentioned Kareem Hunt. He does have the inner thigh injury. He was listed as a participant in Wednesday's practice. He is questionable for this coming week. Odell Beckham Jr. has a toe injury that limited him in practice on Wednesday. He is also listed as questionable. Odds are they both play. I'm pretty sure their snap count will be monitored to some extent. On the defensive side of the ball, Sheldon Richardson has a thigh injury. Linebacker Jacob Phillips, cornerback Greedy Williams, and defensive end Adrian Claiborne all show up as questionable as well. Center J.C. Trotter for the Browns also listed as questionable, injury undisclosed. For the Indianapolis Colts in that number one defense, cornerback T.J. Carey has a hamstring injury. Linebacker Darius Leonard has the inner thigh injury. Linebackers Bobby Okereke, will undergo surgery to address a thumb injury this week. He's listed as questionable, and E.J. Speed has an undisclosed injury. So there are 4 key members of that defense on the injury report this week for the Colts.
All right. Slightly worrisome, but again, I will hold.
It's going to be close.
I will hold to the fact that the Browns are the most inconsistent team in the NFL.
You're right, but let's put it this way. If this game is close, like, several people, I would say quite a few people expect it to be, do you trust Phillip Rivers making a play or the Browns in any other capacity making a play?
Wow. I can't believe it. You had to self-edit yourself as that statement was coming out of your mouth. You're like, would I trust Phillip Rivers or Baker Mayfield? Phillip Rivers or Baker Mayfield? Yeah. Quite honestly, I feel that's a push. But in any case, enough about
I'm not trusting Phillip Rivers.
The New York Giants are at the Dallas Cowboys. The Giants 31, and really the only reason why they're not 32 is because the Jets exist. And the Cowboys have fallen to 20th in our power rankings. They are favored by 9.5 points in this particular game. Dak Prescott leads the league with 1,690 passing yards this season. It's the most passing yards by a player in his team's first 4 games of a season in NFL history. He passed for 450 yards in week 3, 472 yards in week 4, and a career high 502 yards in week. What did I just repeat the same number of weeks? I did. Anyway,
you did.
The first player in NFL history with at least 450 passing yards in 3 consecutive games. With another performance of at least 400 passing yards this season, Prescott, who faces the Giants in week 5, can become the 4th quarterback with 4 games of at least 400 passing yards in a single season in NFL history. And that was the stat that I had pulled up on here before. No, it wasn't. I lied. What do you know?
Well, while you look for that stat, I'll quickly jump into injury before we give our analysis.
I have
the cap. Well, there you go.
Didn't take me too long.
Well,
The players with the most games with at least 400 passing yards in a single season in NFL history. Ryan Fitzpatrick did it with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in 2018. He had 4 games. Peyton Manning in 2013 had 4 games with the Denver Broncos. And Dan Marino in 1984 had 4 games with the Miami Dolphins. So Prescott does it one more time. He ties for the most. If he does it 2 more times this season, and this just in, he does play the Giants a second time.
Exactly.
There's a good chance that Dak Prescott is going to have the most 400 passing yard games in a single season in NFL history, which to me is crazy. I can't believe that. First of all, I can't believe that Drew Brees isn't on this list. That's probably the most surprising thing out of all of this.
He's got a lot of 350 plus games, but in seasons, but not too many 400 plus games in any one season.
By the way, when I was a kid, my mother told me I could be anyone I wanted to be. Turns out identity theft is a crime, and the Giants are pretending to be a pro football team. I could have made this my lock of the week, but you heard me. I already locked in the gorgeous 49ers.
Yeah, and look, there's so much to take away from this right now. If these two teams weren't in the same division, I clearly stamp the Cowboys as a lock for this game, but it's a division game. It doesn't matter where it's played. Dallas' defense is non-existent, though they are getting some players back. And the Giants pretty much have no offense without Saquon Barkley. Look, whatever they did defensively to slow the Rams down last week, they're going to have to repeat it to have any shot against Dallas, because they can't stop anything. And I just don't see how the Giants make this game competitive outside of the fact that the Cowboys will most likely take them lightly. But I'm still picking the Cowboys to win this game.
You know, it's a shame because we have 2 superfan battles on our Friday show. It's a shame that Kevin and Crazy Jared weren't able to get together to record, because quite honestly, that could be one of the most entertaining superfan battles that you've ever heard. But they did thankfully write some previews for this week's game. So,
this would be fun.
So Kevin says, if the Cowboys lose, I'll be done with the season. That is all. Our entire defense is hot garbage. And even though I believe the Giants haven't scored a touchdown in 2 games, I expect them to put up 27. Hopefully Dak can get to 30 again. The O-line has been a disgrace. Zeke has been invisible. Lamb has had a great start to his rookie campaign, and Dak has thrown for 450 plus in 3 straight. But with the defense we have, every game is up in the air. Oh yeah, Jalen Smith is trash. That is all. Wow.
How did Jalen Smith become trash all of a sudden?
Yeah, Kevin came out hard on the Cowboys. Let's see what Crazy Jared has to say. Cowboys are one of the worst teams in the NFL. Their defense might be historically bad. Their owner still sucks, and their head coach is a complete joke. Any good team should easily capitalize this and crush the Cowboys. Unfortunately, the Giants' offense is badly beat up and wasn't amazing to begin with. The Giants defense has been playing well above what my expectations were and should do well this week too. I think Danny Dimes has his best game of the year, but that isn't saying much. He will likely still have a turnover on some dumb play that will result in a touchdown for the Cowboys that seals the game. Cowboys 31, Giants 27. What is this Giants 27? They can't even muster up. What are they averaging per game right now?
Do the Giants even have 27 points all season?
That's a great question. Jared adds, bonus, watch for a pick by the Giants secondary and a punch out by a linebacker against Dallas's receiving core. This will only result in 3 points. Going to check the Giants points per game right now, but please give me an injury report or something while I do that.
My quick thought on this one is that
it's 11.8 points per game.
11.8 points per game. Great. All right, Justin, go.
All right. Just Dak Prescott's going to be the first quarterback to throw for 6,000 yards, and he's going to finish the season with a 4-12 record.
That's
wow.
Sick. All right.
Yeah, they oh my gosh, the most they scored was 16 in week 1 versus Pittsburgh. That went down to 13 in week 2 and 9 each of the last 2 weeks. Yeah, I don't see where the 27's coming from.
Maybe he meant to write they're going to score between 2 and 7 points.
I mean, 2 and 7 added up do come out to 9 last time I checked my math. So there's that.
What's the injury report?
Injury report, Tyron Smith, tackle for the Cowboys, is questionable, along with defensive ends Tyrone Crawford and Dorrance Armstrong. Center Joe Looney is out. For the Giants, safeties Jabril Peppers and Adrian Colbert are listed as questionable, and along with linebackers Kyler Fackrell and O'Shane Zimenez.
Yeah, they're done. They're toast.
I mean, I don't even know.
I apologize, ladies and gentlemen, for even reading those two write-ups. The 27 points by the Giants is terrible. If the Giants score half of 27, I'll be amazed.
Yeah, especially because you can't score half points.
That would be 13 and a half, not 14.
Denver Broncos are at the New England Patriots. This game is up in the air, but as you heard the breaking news earlier, Patriots don't have a new positive in their camp. Stephon Gilmore, of course, now being another big name for the Patriots, and certainly as a contributor, having tested positive for COVID. The Patriots are 11th in the power rankings. The Broncos are 28th. Oh, by the way, we're moving forward as if this game is going to happen on Sunday. There's a good chance it'll get pushed back to either Monday or Tuesday. If the game does have to get rescheduled, we mentioned on our Tuesday podcast, there isn't a good way to reschedule this game. So it'll be interesting to see how they attempt to reschedule this game. Vegas has the Patriots favored by 5. What do you call an ant that has been shunned by his community? A socially distant. Again, COVID related. See what I'm doing there?
Justin, this is all your fault. Justin.
Pride, you're falling down the power rankings fast.
If the Patriots do play this game, the Broncos have a -6 takeaway to giveaway ratio, and the Patriots have a top 5 defense. I don't care what their actual ranking is. The defense is really, really good and is top 5, baby. I'm going to take the Patriots, and they will cover easily.
With that?
I'm sticking with it. The Patriots defense, did you see what the Patriots defense did to the number 1 team in the league?
They lost?
They were still pretty impressive and held them to only 26 points. How many other teams? And honestly, they held them to less than that. They held them to 19 because 7 of them were thanks to a pick 6.
I don't know. I saw the Patriots defense live. I wasn't that impressed.
Oh, how dare you?
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So, is Cam definitely back?
We still don't know that. My guess is we will know Cam's status for this game on Saturday.
But that's the biggest possible swing in this game. Like, the ability difference between Cam and the backup quarterbacks there in New England is like the Gulf of Mexico. It's enormous.
I agree, but I will also add, from what we saw, Brian Hoyer is the backup quarterback and got literally no snaps. Jarrett Stidham literally got no snaps other than as the practice, the scout team quarterback. So neither of those guys were properly prepared to start the game. Now, that said, the backup job is to be ready to go when your number is called, and neither of those two guys were ready for when their number was called. I think with a full week of practice, they'll be just fine against the Denver Broncos, who are starting Mark Rippon's nephew.
Yeah, about that. So the injury report for the Broncos shows that Drew Lock, with his shoulder injury, did practice on a limited basis on Wednesday and is currently listed as questionable. So I don't know if Rippon's nephew is going to be the starter on Sunday. Wide receiver KJ Hamler, however, is out because of a hamstring. Noah Fant, the tight end, is doubtful with an ankle injury. And cornerback Devontae Harris, along with linebacker Jeremy Atachu, are both listed as questionable for the game. Julian Edelman pod with his knee injury, questionable. I'm guessing he's playing.
Yeah, that's the Tom Brady injury. He will be on the injury report all year.
All year. Gotcha. Tackle Isaiah Wynn, undisclosed.
He got injured during the course of that game against Kansas City, and it is undisclosed. We have no idea.
Okay. Defensive tackle Adam Butler, undisclosed.
Yeah, no idea what's going on with Adam Butler, but he did not play much in the Kansas City game.
Guard Shaq Mason, undisclosed.
Yeah, he didn't play at all in the Kansas City game. Yeah.
And guard Jermaine Illuminar had a migraine and left the game.
Yes. And my guess is that's why he's still out. My other guess is that there's probably some COVID tests that people aren't reporting on. And it would not surprise me if some of those are not being reported in New England. I'm just saying. I'm not saying that that's the case, but it wouldn't shock me.
I mean, when have the Patriots ever not reported something that everybody else needed to know?
I'm just saying that it wouldn't.
It's not like they filmed practices and never told anybody.
That's a lie. But anything else that I would hear about something happening in New England that nobody knew about or they were keeping secret, it wouldn't shock me.
I mean, it's not like they would mess with the football in any way.
Back to the football standpoint, there's no way the Broncos have a chance to win this game if this game is played, even if it's backup quarterbacks.
If this game is played and whoever starts gets a full week of practice, which, I mean, who is starting this week? Is it Hoyer or is it Stidham? Because we know it's not Cam.
Again, we have no idea because they haven't been allowed to practice. So
there's no reps.
My guess is if you're gonna bench Hoyer in the middle of the game for making dumb mental mistakes, which you can't do as a veteran quarterback who's played with this team for years and should know situational football. My guess is you're going to go with Stidham, but at the same time, without practice, it's anyone's guess if it's not Cam Newton.
Hey man, we're talking about practice, not a game.
Well, practice apparently is very important to playing the game of football.
So I've heard.
Speaking of playing games, no word on if this game is going to be delayed for any reason. It's Sunday Night Football. And, I mean, at this point, you kind of have to say that about every game going forward. The Minnesota Vikings are at the Seattle Seahawks. The Seahawks are 2 in our power rankings. I don't know how that ended up happening, but it's true. The Vikings are 21 in our power rankings. Seahawks favored by 7. They also have been 4-0 only twice in franchise history, this year and their Super Bowl championship season of 2013. Seahawks can improve to 5-0 for the first time ever, Justin. So you must be excited.
Yeah, obviously, I feel pretty good about the current record.
Yeah. Which U.S. state is famous for its extra small soft drinks? Minnesota, of course. And the Vikings are playing extra small this season and won't be able to keep up with Russell Wilson and crew. I mean, this is another one. There's so many potential locks of the week this week. It's just outstanding. So, Justin, congratulations on a 5-0 year.
Yeah, I wish I was that confident. This one to me has kind of similar to Miami, has a lot of trap game written on it. The Seahawks weirdly have always had sort of a tough out with the Minnesota Vikings going back a number of years. Kirk Cousins has weirdly always played pretty well against them. And the Seahawks have, honestly, the worst pass defense in the league, and it's not close. I think if you can place a prop bet on Kirk Cousins throwing for more than 400 yards this game, I would do so. I think there is a very high likelihood. I think that this will be a high-scoring game. Fortunately for Seattle, we got Russell Wilson, who's the best football player in the world and playing at a level right now that is frankly completely bonkers and unreasonable. And for whatever reason, the team has somehow adopted like an analytics-first mindset, which is the exact opposite of what their philosophy has been. And so now, they're one of the, the teams that passes the most on early downs and in second and long situations and going for it on fourth down in times where you conventionally wouldn't, but the analytics say to do so. And as a result, they're burning down the league offensively. So, I think it'll be a high-scoring game. I think that this could be similar to like a 35-30, sort of like against the Patriots earlier this year. But just like almost every game, it's going to give me an ulcer because the Seahawks will probably be, up by less than a touchdown with 2 minutes to go on the ball in the other team's hands. And I'm going to be a nervous wreck because I follow the dumbest team in the
NFL. Justin, don't be too hard on your team, but you do mention a couple of stats there that presents a conundrum for this game. The Vikings pretty much won last week by riding Dalvin Cook. And I've often said Kirk Cousins is not a good quarterback. He has not played well this year. He hasn't turned the ball over as much, but he's also not making any plays. And this offense is predicated on Cook running the ball and play action off of that. You already mentioned your pass defense, not good because, let's be honest, Fitzpatrick looked like he had his Fitzpatrick breakout game of the season so far this year, which was mind-boggling because I was expecting you all to bury them early. And I kind of see the same thing happening against Minnesota. And it's kind of this thing where it's like you all should bury Minnesota, but Minnesota thrives by running the ball, not by throwing it. And yet if Minnesota throws the ball, that may actually benefit you in some way, despite the injuries, which I haven't gotten to yet. So, yeah, this is a weird one for me.
By the way, Kirk Cousins has 6 interceptions, my friend. To go with his 6 touchdowns. You just said he hasn't turned it over as much. He's turned it over more this year than he has any other year.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Wait, as opposed to last year? I'm pretty sure he had more than 6 picks last year.
He may have finished the year with more than 6 picks, but he certainly didn't have 6 picks to start the season.
Okay, then that's the nicest thing I'm going to ever say about Kirk Cousins.
Kirk is, one of those movement bust guys, kind of like Fitzpatrick, right? Where he'll have, some really just mind-bogglingly atrocious games and then some games where he just goes off. And this just seems like the perfect recipe to go off because I think that Seahawks are going to score a lot of points, which means I think they're going to have to get away from the running game to catch up. And since the defense is terrible at preventing the pass, specifically because they have absolutely no pass rush whatsoever, I think that this is a good opportunity for a lot of borderline garbage time stat accumulation on the part of Kirk Cousins. I just think this is the way.
Yeah, Russell Wilson leads the league in touchdowns and in passer rating.
Vikings injury report. Starting with the Vikings injury report because Justin, the Seahawks one is quite long. Eric Kendricks, a linebacker, has a foot injury. Adam Thielen has a shoulder injury. Both are listed as questionable, most likely will play. Other names showing up include tackle Oli Udo, cornerback Holton Hill, and cornerback Chris Boyd, also listed as questionable. For the Seahawks, we have cornerback Quentin Dunbar nursing a knee injury. Tight end Will Dissly has an Achilles injury. Cornerback Shaquille Griffin with a shoulder. Running back Chris Carson with a knee, KJ White with the illness, and running back Carlos Hyde with a shoulder, all listed as questionable, all limited participants in practice Wednesday, with the exception of Dunbar, who didn't practice. Jamal Adams and Jordan Brooks are officially ruled as out for this coming week. So there's some, again, your pass defense taking more hits. Guard Mike Iapata, defensive end Benson Mayoa, Cody Barton, the linebacker, Dwayne Brown, the tackle, and Damian Lewis, the guard, all show up as questionable with undisclosed injuries. So, yeah.
Other than that, though, healthy.
Yeah, other than that.
And, since I've been on the pod for a bit, there are a couple of things that I do want to point out. Obviously, the Jamal Adams injury is a shame because alongside Bobby Wagner, he's by far the best player in the defense, and he's where all of the pass rush comes from. The backup linebacker that they have in for him has played pretty well. And he's actually been he made a connection with Cam Chancellor early last week, and now they've been doing film study every day together, and it really made a big difference in that game, and he really stepped forward. My hope is that once Jamal Adams is back, we end up with a lot of free safety looks where we can drop Jamal Adams in the box or put them on the line and move them around, and really like Troy Polamalu the hell out of him, because I think he's obviously that kind of player where you can do that with. The Seahawks offensive line is quietly become one of the better pass blocking lines in the NFL, which is the first time ever. And I think that has a lot to do with the success of Russell Wilson as well. That plus the fact that DK Metcalf is tied for the league lead in receiving yards and is frankly a man amongst boys. And I think by the end of the year is easily going to be, if not, a top 10 wide receiver, borderline top 5 in the NFL.
All of this said, with all the bad things that you had to say about your team, we're all taking the Seahawks in this game.
Oh, of course.
Of course.
I mean, it's a long way to say we're still taking the Seahawks. Monday Night Football, which may not be the only Monday Night Football game this week. We'll have to wait and see. But the one that
played
the one that will be on ESPN is the Los Angeles Chargers at the New Orleans Saints. The Chargers are 19th in the power rankings. The Saints are 12th. Vegas has the Saints as 7.5 point favorites. The 32nd overall selection in the 2001 NFL draft was Drew Brees, and he was actually a second-round choice 1 year before the expansion Houston Texans first took the field as the league's 32nd franchise. The first player the Chargers selected that day was LaDainian Tomlinson, who is already in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Tomlinson so far is one of 2 Hall of Famers from the 2001 draft, in addition to Steve Hutchinson, who was selected by the Seahawks at number 17 overall. And it's funny, because we talk about how old Tom Brady is, but Drew Brees is right up there. Basically, I was just reminiscing about the beautiful herb garden I had when I was growing up. Good times. I'm gonna take the Saints in this one. I don't really have. Sure, Justin Herbert's looking like he might be a real NFL quarterback, but I don't see them being able to beat the Saints. And it sounds like Michael Thomas is going to be back this week, which is a huge cog in the Saints offense that they've definitely been missing. And so I think they'll have no problems with their dome field advantage, even though it's not really an advantage this year. I'm going to take the Saints, and I'm going to feel good about it. But Justin has called for the Monty upset special for the Los Angeles Chargers.
Adam and Eve on a raft, a cup of muck, and an upset special.
Yeah, man, Adam and Eve on a raft. Let's go. I think that there's just enough randomness going on right now that, if you have to shoot a shot at an upset, I think this is a good shot as any. I think that Justin Herbert is really playing well. I like what we've seen out of him. I think he'll play well in this game. I think that Drew Brees, even though they're at home in the dome, still doesn't look great. He looks shot. To me, he looks relatively similar to like the last year or so of Peyton Manning in Denver, where he'll put up stats, he'll get the ball where it needs to go, but it takes, half an hour to get where it's going. And if he's throwing more than 20 yards downfield, he has to throw that thing up into the sky and let it come down. And so, it's not the same Saints offense that it was before. And so I think I totally understand most people taking the Saints, but I'm swinging for the fences. I'm taking a shot at the upset here.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, but the fact that this game might not even be played in New Orleans is probably the only thing that I would say is in the Chargers' favor. Because, again, keep an eye on the weather this weekend, hurricane coming up the Gulf Coast. This game might be moved to Indianapolis. And while the Saints are preparing for the former as opposed to the latter, which is the move, I don't see how they can't even consider the possibility that this game might not happen in New Orleans. Look, I don't know what's going on with the Chargers. The one game Tyrod Taylor was able to play, they won, and since then they've lost everything else with Herbert. Again, despite his impressive numbers, he's still a rookie, and he still made rookie mistakes. He's thrown interceptions into tight windows that he probably shouldn't have. He's taken sacks he probably shouldn't have, but these are all growing pains. So, you take that into account, you can say, okay, no wonder they haven't won a game yet. Granted, they've like I said, they've been close. They were close last week against the Buccaneers. They were close a couple of weeks ago against the Chiefs. And yeah, it does give hope, but the head coach has already come out and said that Taylor's not losing his job due to injury and that he shouldn't lose his job due to injury. So unless they win a game with Herbert as quarterback, there's no reason to leave him in there despite, air quotes, how well he's playing at this point. Go back to Tyrod Taylor, slow things down, get back to ground and pound, provided everybody in the backfield is healthy, and just move forward that way. I get that the receiving corps is probably happy because they're getting more chances to catch footballs, but you're not winning games. And while your numbers look good for your contract, your next contract, that's fine, but ultimately you got to win, and they're not winning.
Well, I mean, Anthony Lynn may want to cool it on the Tyrod Taylor is going to get his job back, because that's how you get fired. And I don't think anybody wants to see Anthony Lynn lose his job, but like you gotta stick with the rookie at this point. Tyrod Taylor, it's a shame what happened to him, and quite honestly, it's like the same story for Tyrod no matter what team he goes to. You gotta stick with Justin Herbert. There's no way you can move off of Justin Herbert at this point, because Tyrod's going to come in. He's not going to do any better.
But I mean, what else can you put this on as far as why this team isn't winning? I mean, granted, okay, fine. Who was the fourth team that they played this year? Because I'm trying to look at their schedule right now. I've already mentioned the Chiefs and the Bucs.
It was a shootout with the Buccaneers. They lost 38-31.
But who did they play week one? The Bengals. That's who they played week one. And
Tyrod played that game.
Tyrod played that game. And in between, they lost to the Panthers as well. So Chiefs, Panthers, Buccaneers. And the Panthers game was a game they could have won if not for some, I don't know, you want to call it questionable play calling, turnovers at the wrong and inopportune times. Look, at the end of the day, it's still a rookie quarterback. And that's what I look at. So as the more he plays, the more teams will know what he's comfortable going up against. And those opposing defenses will stymie him at some point. Whereas Taylor, who's an experienced veteran, has a mobility factor that most teams won't even game plan for. So, look, I look at it this way. They're not winning this week. The next two games are against the Jets and against the Dolphins. So, no matter who's quarterback, they should win both of those games. But we've already mentioned the Dolphins and how long Fitzpatrick has to start, so we don't even know if he's going to be the starter in that week. But the schedule doesn't look good for the Chargers going forward.
Well, you and I believe the Saints are going to pull out the victory in this one. Justin's out on the limb with the Chargers all by himself.
Yeah, quick hits on the injuries, most significant. Taylor is listed as questionable, though it doesn't say whether he's practicing that this week. Hopefully whoever's injecting shots in people stays away from him. Others Chargers players showing up in the injury report include tackle Storm Norton, wide receiver Mike Williams, guard Trey Turner, and tackle Brian Balaga. Austin Eckler is listed as doubtful. He's expected to be sidelined.
He's out
4 to 6 weeks with a hamstring injury and a hyperextended knee.
I have a friend that has a fantasy team that could really use Austin Eckler as listed as out, not doubtful, so that he can go pick up an actual running back to put on that fantasy team.
That would be Kelly, and good luck because he has fumble issues.
Well, I don't want Eckler's backup. There's some other backups that are available in this particular league that I could use. I mean, my friend could use. No, my friend really needs these other running backs, but he can't put Austin Eckler on IR because he's not listed as out. He's only listed as doubtful. Very annoying.
For the New Orleans Saints, Marshawn Lattimore, Andres Pete, Michael Thomas, Janoris Jenkins, Jared Cook, Marcus Davenport all show up as questionable, undisclosed injuries. Ryan Ramczyk, the tackle, shows up in a concussion protocol because he left Sunday's game against the Lions with that injury. So, hopefully, most importantly, I would say Michael Thomas, hopefully he's back. Other than that, Justin mentioned Drew Brees not being able to throw the ball more than 10 yards downfield. They need to ride Alvin Kamara as much as possible, whether that's dump offs, running the ball, or screen passes. The ball just needs to be in his hands 50% of the time for them to have a chance to win this game.
That'll do it for all the games. I don't remember if I told the power rankings, but the Lions are 26th in the power rankings. The Packers are 3rd. Justin is listed as the Packers as the winner of the bye week. I don't know if you did that on purpose, Justin, but see it here on our sheet. You got the check mark next to the Packers.
If it was the Jets, I would have given the win to the bye week.
Okay, good to know. I hope you enjoyed Dad Joke Thursday. I enjoyed it. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I think we should do this on a weekly basis.
No.
All right.
No. Justin, don't encourage this again.
Tell me what you guys think. nextfanup@gmail.com or tweet us at NFU Podcast, facebook.com/NFU Podcast. I'm sure you guys have some more dad jokes out there. I'll be glad to sprinkle them into the show every Thursday. It's fun. No, neither of
Kofi
you.
Annan.
All right.
Kofi Annan.
Fine. Here's Kofi. There you have it.
Dear friends and colleagues, saying goodbye is never easy. I believe we can all feel proud of what we have done together, and through it all, you have maintained your professionalism and commitment and remained true to the spirit of the Charter. That principle.
We go out, we hit people in the mouth.
I should have ended on this one. When does a joke become a dad joke? When it becomes apparent. I mean, come on. That is gold, Jerry. Gold.